Hello friends. Today we are going to learn the MVVM pattern in WPF. So what we are going to learn, what it is, how to implement it, and more importantly, why we should use MVVM pattern. So the agenda for today's class, first we will understand the problems with the three-layer architecture. Then we will understand why we should use MVVM pattern. Then we will understand what exactly is MVVM pattern. Then at the code level, we will understand what is the problem with the three-layer architecture, and then we will gradually move to the MVVM architecture. Then we will understand why and how to use INotifyChange interface. Please note that most of the tutorials that you will see on the internet will not focus on the why part. They will showcase you how to implement it. But it is very important to understand why you should do a particular thing. Next, we will understand why and how to use I command interface. And finally, we will understand how to make this I command interface that we are using generic. So we will have a generic relay command or delegate command class. So there is a lot to learn in this video. So stick around till the end and I promise you that you will understand what exactly is MVVM pattern and how to implement it in WPF perfectly. So let's understand the three-layer workflow that we generally use in any project. First, we have a UI layer, then we have a model layer, and then we have a data access layer, right? So this is a three-layer workflow. Now, UI will have a XAML file and UI logic will be in the XAML.cs file. You have to note this point. Now, let's understand it at a code level. So we will create a WPF application in Visual Studio. So from here, you can create new project and there will be various project options that you have. From there, I am selecting WPF app .NET framework. You can also select .NET. So what exactly we are doing here is we will create a customer class and this class will have only three properties. So let me create a customer class. So that I will create in the model folder. So I will have one model folder and here I will create one customer class. To save some time, I have already created the code snippets that I will be copy pasting and then I will be explaining you. So let's create the customer class. So here I will create the customer class. So I have created the customer class in the model folder. Okay, so we have our customer class ready. This class is having only three properties: name, phone number, and whether the customer is currently active or not. So the same we will be reflecting at the front end side. So in the XAML side, I will copy paste this grid related code. What exactly it is doing is it is just displaying the name, phone number, active status, and profile status based on whether the customer is active or not. It is just a grid. Grid is having four rows and two columns, and similarly, we will have the labels for all of them. One is the checkbox. Okay. So now in the backend side, what we will do? I have one model with the name customer. This customer is having these properties, and now I will fill that customer from the backend. Please remember that this data will be actually coming from the data access layer and from the SQL server. But for our simplicity purpose, I'm just hard coding the customer data. Okay. So this is the customer data. I am creating the customer related object here. And then here I will initialize the customer related data. So here I am initializing the customer related data. Simply I have created the object of customer and then initialized the data. Next, what I will do? I will display this data in the UI. For displaying it, I have created a separate method. That method is display on UI. So what exactly it is doing? It is displaying this data. So here I will call this display on UI. This code is having two things in it: mapping code and transformation code. if you will see, these two are just mapping code and this is the transformation code. Why it is required? Because customer active status is actually string, right? But in our case, it should be a boolean. So we have converted it into a boolean. And similarly, the profile label is also in string. So that is not there as a property in the customer because that is not required to be stored. But in the front end side, we required it. So we have created it in this way. Okay. So this is a simple code. And now when I will run it, this data will be displayed on the screen. Let's see that. So now if you will notice, the name is coming, phone number is coming, active status is coming, and profile status is coming. So here we had the customer model, then we had the XAML page. In the XAML, we added the required properties, and in the CS file, we added the mapping code as well as the transformation code. So what are the issues with this architecture? First, code behind dependency. If you can see, all the code that we have written of transformation is in code behind. Next, no data binding. So suppose I want to click here. Based on this click, I want to change the color here. That will not be possible without writing the code. So there is no direct data binding here. Next is the limited reusability. Since the code is directly attached with the code behind, we can't directly use this code. So to recap, we have understood the three-layer architecture where the UI calls the model and the model calls the data access layer. If you notice, we haven't focused on model and data access layer linkage because that is a separate architecture. If you want to decouple the model and data access layer architecture, in that case, you can use a repository pattern. For now, we are focused on the issues that are there between UI and model layer. So, there is a XAML.cs file, and this CS file is having all this cryptic code. Now, we want to remove this code and move it to somewhere else. For that, what we will do? We will implement the MVVM pattern. So, what exactly is MVVM architecture pattern? MVVM stands for Model View View Model. It is a design pattern used in WPF to separate UI, data, and logic for better maintainability. You can tell it as a design pattern or a architecture pattern. So, what is a model in this? Model holds the data and business logic. View displays the data, which is the XAML file, and view model connects the model and view using data binding and commands. So, what is the workflow of MVVM? It is something like this. UI calls the view model and view model calls the model. Model calls the data access layer and it gets the data from there. And then model gives the data to the view model and view model updates the UI. So this is the workflow. Okay. So in UI, there will be XAML file. The code behind logic that we were writing in XAML.cs file will be moved now to a separate view model class. How exactly it will be done, that we will see at the code level. First, we will create a view model class. Before that, let me create a view model folder. So here I will create the view model folder. Now I will add a view model class. This view model class will be reflecting my UI. So here I will create a customer view model. And in the customer view model, what all properties will be there? These all properties should be there in the customer view model. Name, phone number, active, and profile status. Okay. So for all these properties, I have created one code that I will be using now. Here I have created four properties: name, mobile number, is active, and profile. Okay. And I am referring the customer model here. So I am creating the model in the constructor, and then in the properties, I am referring this model class. So as I mentioned, now view will call the view model and view model will call the model. So here it is doing the same thing. View model is now referring the model class properties. Okay. If you will notice that here in the mobile number, we are converting it into string. Why? Because in the model, it is a long and here we are referring it as string. Similarly, if you will notice, the return type of is active is bool, and we have moved the code that we were writing here for displaying is active, if your displaying is checked equal to true. That we have moved here. That logic we have moved here. Okay. And for the set also, what we have done, if value equal to true, then in the model we have to set the actual value, which is active and not active. Please remember that in the customer model, if you will see, the property is string, but in the view model, it is bool because the view model will reflect the UI related properties. So what are the UI related properties? It is actually a checkbox. That's why we have made it as bool. Okay. And one more property which is not there in the model, that also we have added here. Why? Because we want to reflect the exactly same as what is there in our UI. So in the UI, we have the profile status, right? So I will tell this also as profile status. How the profile status is coming? That is based on whether the customer is active or not. If it is active, then we are returning the green color, or else we are returning the red color. Okay, so these all four properties are referring to our actual view from the front end screen. Now we don't need the code that we have written in the backend side. So from here we will remove this display related code. Okay, next what we will do is we will remove this code also. From where we will get the customer model, that we will write now. In the front end side, what we will do is we will now create a data context. Okay. So once you add the view model, after that just rebuild it. Okay. Once that is done, after that you can use the data context of the view model here. So in this way, you can add the data context. Here I will add the customer view model data context. Now I can declare the name. I will give any random name here, then the phone number or mobile number, whatever is the property that we have given. And then last one was is active. Okay, is active is true. So we have given this three property, and now we will refer these properties here. How we will do that? Here we will write content binding and name of the property. Similarly, for rest other properties as well. Mobile number is checked. So finally, for profile label, background color, file status. Okay. So now we have removed everything from the code behind and moved everything to a separate view model. If you will notice, the logic also is here only now. So let's run and see the output, whether the output is same or not. So the output is exactly same. Please note the data context and the customer view model that we are setting here can also be set in the code behind in this way. So in the XAML.cs file, you can set the customer view model in this way and set the data context also. Okay. So now if you are setting in both files, in that case, this data will be overridden by this CS file data. So this data will be coming now. As you can see, the data has been overridden. So whichever method you want to use, you can use it. For now, I will comment this code. One more thing that I want is when I unselect this checkbox, I want this status to be automatically changed. Currently, it is not changing. So how we can do it, that we will see now. So there is an interface called INotifyPropertyChanged. What it does is, when we want two-way data binding, in that case, we can use this interface. So what it will do is, it will send the data from the view model to view so that the view will be automatically updated. We don't have to write any extra code for it. So how exactly it is done, that we will see now at the code. So what we will do is, here I will implement the INotify property change. So this is the property. Now, where I want this change, when this value is set, is active is set, there I want to recall that. For recalling it, this is the syntax. If property change is not equal to null, property change, here you can pass this object and then new property change event R, and here you can pass the name of the property. You can use name of also and directly property name also. So here I will pass the profile status. As you can see, when I uncheck the checkbox, it is automatically changing. When I check it, it's green. When I uncheck, it is red. How exactly it is happening? With the help of INotifyPropertyChanged interface. There it is again recalculating all the profile status related data and sending it to the view directly. We don't have to write any extra code. If we were using not the MVVM pattern and the normal way, then we had to use the selection change method. And in the selection change method, we have to write all this code, right? So this is one of the big advantage of MVVM pattern. So in this way, you can use the INotify property change. Now, what I want is, I want this static data to be in a form style. And when I submit it, the data should be reflected here. So for that, what I want to do is, I want to use a button click. That button will fetch all the data from the form and submit it and show it as a data grid. I have already written that code in the front end side and in the back end side to save some time. So I will use that code. So you can see this code. It is pretty straightforward. Now I am using the text box and the button and a data grid. You can refer this code as well. Let me run it and showcase you what exactly in the code behind. Also, I have made the changes. So I am now fetching a customer based on the data which we have filled in the text box and checkbox and adding that, and same I am setting as the item source. Okay, let me run it and showcase to you how exactly the form is being filled now. So if you will notice, if I am entering the data here, putting it, so the data is being added now. So this is being done without the help of MVVM pattern. Now what I want is, when I click on the button, I don't want this code also in the code behind. So how we will do that? With the help of ICommand interface. We require it because we want to move the code behind code which is there of the button into a separate class. So how we will do that? There are these all steps that we have to follow. Now please focus on the screen. We will do one step at a time. First, add observable list property in the view model. So here I will add the observable collection. Before that, first I will comment out all this data. This also I don't want. And from here, I don't want any model references directly from XAML.cs file. Why we are using observable collection? Because it will automatically notify in case we are adding, updating or deleting any of the items from this collection. Okay. Now, what is the next step? Add the button logic in the view model. So now we will add the button logic in the view model. We will create one method. Let's create one method, void add customer, and write the logic here. So we will use this code. What exactly we are doing here is same thing that we did there in the XAML file. sample.cs file. Create a customer object, and then all the properties that we had set in the view model, same properties we will use here. Okay. And once the data is being added in the data grid, after that we will clear the form. For that we will use this syntax. Okay. Once we have set the values like this, then we have to again notify it via property change method to the UI. So it will be reflected in that way. So this is step number 2, adding the actual logic of the button in the view model. What is the next step? Create a command class. Now we will be creating a separate command class. So let's create it. I will create one separate folder for command. And here I will create the command class. So here what we will do, we will implement the I command class. In this submit command class, what we want the reference of the view model. Okay. The view model reference should be passed to this command class. So I will create the reference of the view model. Whosoever is creating this submit button object, that has the responsibility of passing the view model. This dot to view model. Okay. So there are two special methods in the command class. One is can execute, one is execute. So the first execution will be of can execute. If there are any condition in which you don't want to execute or you want to check it, in that case you can use this method. For now, I will make it return true every time, as I don't have any such condition as of now. And in the execute method, we will call the view models method that we had created. Okay, so in this way, we have created the submit command class. We have to implement I command interface. Then we have to pass the customer view model, whichever view model we want to pass, that we have to write here. And same in the execute method, we have to call the actual method of the view model. Okay, this step is also completed. What is the next step? Next step is to create the command object in the view model. We have created the reference variable and now we will create the object here. We can create the object in this way. New submit button, and here we will pass the view model. I have just made the changes in the step 5 and 6. First we need to create the public property of I command interface, and then with the help of that property we will create the command object. So we have completed both the steps. We have created one property of submit button, and then we have initialized it in this way. What is the next step? Bind this property in the submit button. So now we have done whatever is required from the view model part, and the separate submit command also we have created. Now we need to link the submit command that we have created in the XAML file. How will we do that? We will use the command property here. There is a command property in that. Before that, we need to build it. So once the build is succeeded, after that we can use the command property of the button class. Here we have to pass the actual property name. So what was our property name? Submit button, submit command. Okay. So now the linkage has been established between the UI and the view model with the help of this submit command property. Next, what we have to do is we have to update the data grid here. So data grid now, how we will do that? One more thing that we have to do is we have to initialize this observable collection also. So that also we will do now in the constructor itself. One more change that we have to do is instead of data context here, it should be item source because we are using the data grid. Okay. So after that, once all the things are set up, let's run and see. When I click on the submit button, first can execute will be called. Since we have made it by default true, then next will be the execute actual button. Now execute button is called, which internally is calling the view models add customer button, add customer logic. So this is the method, and whatever logic we have written here, the same is being called now. And finally, once everything is being added in the customer's collection, that is being automatically reflected to the UI, because this customers is not list class, it is observable collection class. That is the advantage of using the observable collection. Also, once that data is being added, what we are doing is we are emptying the form. So when we are emptying, we are again doing the property change event. We are calling it so that the same get reflected in the UI as well. So let's see what happens now. See, the data has been added, and here also everything has been updated. Let's see one more example. Let me add one more entry now. See, we have added also, and the actual form is being cleared as well. Please note, I have not added many validations here. This is just to showcase you how the MVVM pattern is actually working in WPF. Okay. So I hope you understood how we created the submit button class, and then how we use that submit button class in the view model, and then how we referred particular submit button command class in the XAML file. So this was the submit command class. Okay. The same we had used in the view model. In this way, we had used in the view model, we had created the submit command property, and in this way we had initialized it. We passed the view model itself, and this was the method that we had created in the view model. And in the XAML file, what we had done, we have updated the submit button in this way with the help of command property in the button class, and the same we have reflected in the item source for data grid. The next step is to optimize this code. For that, what we will do is we will use the relay command. Now, why we require to use the relay command? If you will notice here, in the submit command class, it is tightly coupled to the view model. Right now in our form, we have just one button. But in the same form, if we have 4 or 5 buttons, then we have to create 4 or 5 classes. Now creating all those classes will become a big headache for us. So what we will do is, so instead of passing the actual view model, what we will do is we will pass 2 methods. One method will be just saying that whether this command should be executed or not, which is the can execute. The can execute is expecting that method, and one method will be the actual code method. Okay, let's see how we will do now. So I hope you understood why we require relay command. To make the command class more reusable, what we require, what to execute, and when to execute. Now, how to create the relay command? These are the steps to create the relay command. First, we will create the relay command class. Then we will implement the iCommand interface. Then we will add the 2 delegates in the relay command. And then we will use the relay command in the view model. Let's see that at the code level now. So we have one relay command here that we will be using now. I will just explain you the code after putting it here. So I will just replace this code. And what we have done here, we have created 2 delegates here, action and func. Action is for what needs to be executed, and func delegate is returning a bool variable, which means it will tell whether this command needs to be executed or not. So in the can execute, what we have done, we have used the func delegate. Okay. If it's not null, then return whatever is passed in the can execute. And in the function, what we are doing, we are calling this execute function here. Whatever we are passing in the action function, that we are calling here. Now this class is not dependent on the view model. Now it's the responsibility of the view model to pass these 2 functions to it. So in the view model, what changes needs to be done? Wherever we are creating the relay submit command, there we will create in this way. We'll create the relay command, because the relay command is also implementing iCommand interface. We don't have to change much thing. And here what we are passing? We are passing the actual method. This is the method we had created. So in this way we are passing. And second method we are not passing, because right now we don't have any such logic. So in this way you can use a relay command and make your code more flexible. So finally, we have come to the end of this lecture. In this lecture, we have learned a lot of things. What we did, we understood what is separation of concern. We understood the three-layer architecture and what are the problems which are there currently in this three-layer architecture, specifically with respect to GUI. Then we understood why we need a view model. Then we understood the MVVM pattern. Then we understood how to implement two-way binding with the help of INotifyPropertyChanged interface. Later on, we understood the command pattern for action. And finally, we also understood the relay command and why it is necessary. It is necessary for the reusability. That's all in this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe in case you found the video helpful. We will meet with another coding lesson in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.